First off, I want to thank everyone for being here and welcome you to the first of a three-part webinar series that we're going to be hosting. My name is Melissa Harris. I am Pinwheel's Head of Operations. The hope is that the meat of the webinar will be under 45 minutes, leaving us some time at the end if there's any Q&A. You can submit your questions at any point in the Q&A chat up at the, in your toolbar. And we'll either answer them as we go or again at the end of the presentation. And then just so folks know that we will make a link available to everyone to download the deck that we've presented, as well as if you want to watch the webinar again, that will be available to you. So the goal of today's webinar is really to give you a great foundational knowledge on why editorial content is so important and how to bring it to life. This is just a quick snapshot of what we're going to cover throughout this presentation. So before we go, it'd probably be helpful for you to know who we are. We are Pinwheel. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. We are a 90% virtual agency, which makes us really highly adaptable. The folks you see on screen are our core Pinwheelians, I think is how we call ourselves. Today's panelists are myself, Todd Anthony, who is our founder and head of strategy, Sarah Archambault, our editorial director, and Emily Doherty, our SEO strategist. So aside from our core Pinwheel group, one of the things that makes Pinwheel really special is we have this extremely deep bench of collaborators. So these are people that we can bring in on any project at any time. A lot of them are byline writers. We have editors, strategists, programmers, video production. Our bench is deep, and it makes it possible for us to work across a lot of industries. We highly vet these people. They are handpicked, and they are a talented group of folks. And we really try and build that out in a diverse voice. So we try to recruit according to that. Okay, you know who we are, but now why are we here? So we're here to learn how to make editorial content work harder and smarter for you. Whether you're just getting started with your program or you've been doing it for a long time, there's a lot of things that can learn in this ever-changing space. So we're going to have 3 polls during this webinar. This should be really simple on your end, but the idea is just to get a sense of who you are. So our first poll, which I am launching now, is we're just trying to get a sense of, are you already creating editorial content? So I will leave that poll up and running for a couple of minutes while we go through this. As I said, Pinwheel, we have been working and creating editorial content for quite some time. So this is a space that we're quite familiar with, and we kind of enjoy it, which is why we are doing this webinar. I think what I'll do is I'll leave the poll up while I introduce Todd to go through and kick things off. So I'm going to hand it off to Todd, and feel free to keep voting in the poll. I'll close it during Todd's presentation.
Okay, hi y'all. I'm Todd Anthony, founder and head of strategy at Pinwheel. I'm going to go through a little history, a little context to sort of tee this up, sort of a little story about how we got to where we are. And it all starts about 100 years ago. Companies got the idea to start buying space in public media to sell directly to customers. You can hit the forward button there. There we go. So newspaper ads mostly, but also magazine and radio. And so pre-TV. And when it started out, advertising wasn't all that annoying, actually, because in fact, it was helpful for people because a lot of people didn't know or were aware of all of the different things that they could buy. It's hard to imagine when advertising was not annoying, but there was a period before we were born. Gradually, this became an industry in and of itself, advertising, and those messages started to permeate every nook and cranny where people got their information or entertainment. It even invaded public spaces like bus stops and highways, and it actually funded the creation of many more channels for information and entertainment. So you get all those cable channels, et cetera. And as time went on and technology progressed, the places where people got their information and entertainment also increased exponentially. But those ads were always interruptive. They were everywhere. They stood between or next to the things that you actually wanted. Hence, they were starting to get pretty darn annoying. But the most rapid change has happened in the last 20 years with the internet. So with the internet, people started to get their information, very specific information that they needed and wanted from internet search engines. So in addition to traditional advertising and digital banners and social ads, et cetera, advertisers naturally invested in search engine marketing, which were those promoted results at the top. But that was also interruptive in nature and stood between you and what you were looking for. But something kind of interesting happened. Companies realized that they could make search engine algorithms work to promote their company. So they just needed to provide their prospective audiences with the information they were already looking for. And if they did that right, their content would be among the top results that the search engines were delivering to their customers. And that's when we got SEO optimized editorial content. Instead of being interruptive, they would be genuinely helpful. They would help you fix the leak in your roof. They would help satisfy your curiosity about plant-based hair growth shampoos. They would help you fix your credit so you could afford a better home or car. And because it wasn't annoying, but genuinely helpful, earning top positions in Google and other search engines could offer one of the best types of marketing there is. And SEO-focused editorial is one of the key ways your brand can do this. So with that context, I will turn it over to our SEO strategist, Emily Doherty, to explain why editorial content matters so much.
And before Emily takes it, I'm just going to quickly share our poll results that looks like the majority of folks on this call are currently creating editorial content. So what we're going to learn from Emily will be extremely relevant.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd, Melissa. All right. So as Todd mentioned, earning a high level of visibility in Google, aka top positions or rankings, can be a very effective marketing strategy. One of the most obvious reasons is just the sheer volume of people who interact with Google on a daily basis. So 5.9 million, to put that into perspective on a daily basis, that's roughly 8.5 billion searches per day. That's a ton of user intent that needs to be met with content. So with this in mind, there's obviously going to be a ton of editorial content that's competing for the same eyeballs. So according to a recent study done by Conductor, which is a prominent voice in the industry, on average, organic search is going to contribute 36% of overall website traffic for these 6 key industries in particular. So again, we've established millions of people turn to Google with intent to have a specific need met. The intent can range from needing a quick answer to a quick question, finding a local business, researching a product or a service that you're interested in buying or engaging with. So this makes Google a really unique environment where brands can reach their target audience at all stages of their journey. The brands that have success with earning and maintaining this organic visibility, they're able to do so with authentic and expertise-driven content. Creating the type of content that both prioritizes SEO or search engine optimization and also inspires a click-through to your website is something of an art form. Brands that have success with earning and maintaining this organic visibility are a lot of the time able to do so because of this type of content, as opposed to creating content that's written really just for the sole purpose of ranking in the search results. And you will notice that Google doesn't really value that type of content anymore. It's really all about writing for the human, not for the algorithm. So again, this is why using a human-first editorial content strategy should be part of every brand's content marketing playbook. This is especially true for brands in the Your Money, Your Life categories. You will often see that as an acronym, YMYL. This includes finance or healthcare, where this type of editorial content is usually held to a much higher standard. So, however, even though it is difficult to rank for this type of content, organic search remains one of the most cost-effective and impactful marketing channels in the long term. Why is that? Really just because users have come to trust Google. I know that sometimes we can get some spammy results when we do our searches, but for the most part, we've come to trust that the top 10 organic search results that we see, we're more inclined to trust them because we can reasonably infer that the website that we're being provided, it offers the best solution for what we're searching for. Moving on to the SERP. So I'm sure we all know there's a ton happening in the SERP these days. So when I say SERP, that is an acronym for Search Engine Results Page. So from here on out, I will be using that acronym. As I stated in earlier meetings we had about this, Search Engine Results Page is a mouthful to say every 3 words. So from here on out, it's just going to be SERP. So when we look at the search results, it's really important to remember that what we're seeing in Google is a living, breathing, competitive environment. These results will vary on a daily, even an hourly basis. And this SERP outline that we provided is only one example of what a SERP could possibly look like based on a type of query. So looking at this example of a SERP, there are a number of different ways that Google can choose to serve up content to searchers. This can include images, videos, featured snippets. People also ask answer dropdowns, image carousels, the list goes on and on. And I'm sure that you may have read certain headlines that are a little scary these days with how Google's search generative experience is actually further going to change the search engine results pages. So we will be diving into SEO and AI at a later date as part of this webinar series. So these SERP features are very much largely driven by the intent of the query. So is it informational? Is it transactional, navigational? It can really vary based on that. So just as a nice high-level example, if you search for something like how to use a charcoal grill, you're likely going to see video results, some prompts for related questions or types to explore. That's going to be your people also ask section on the SERP. And the reason you're seeing this type of content served up for that specific query is because Google has come to understand that a video tutorial is probably a lot more helpful to someone versus an infographic, for example. So this is all to say that before writing your editorial content, it's extremely important to understand intent and what type of content Google thinks satisfies that intent. So again, whether it's a video, an article, a chart, etc. Now, brands that are able to stay on top of their content program have a lot of opportunity to have their content appear to users in a variety of different ways, many of which we just referenced. So if your brand isn't doing anything to keep up, in other words, if you're not necessarily looking at the SERP to see what type of content Google wants to rank for a specific query, it's going to be very difficult to compete because I'll bet a lot of your competitors are likely doing things to keep up with that. So to dive a bit deeper into some of those challenges, our editorial director, Sarah Archambault, is going to explain a little bit more.
Thank you, Emily. Hello, everybody. So as Emily was saying, it can take a lot of work to get editorial content to rank in the top search results that we're seeing on the SERP, or page 1, as we used to call it. And editorial content, and the right kind of editorial content, as Emily was explaining, can play a big role in helping to boost your brand when it's done correctly. It can have lots of benefits, starting with driving search traffic to your site. As Emily shared earlier, over 1/3 of traffic is coming to sites from organic search, much of which is editorial content. But a strong editorial program can go so much further than just bringing eyeballs to your website. With the right type of content, it can help your brand establish expertise, authority, and trust within your brand's niche. It gives you the chance to share your expertise. So in the grill example, if you are a grill company and you're sharing tips on how to make the perfect steak, it makes sense to tie those type of tips to your product, which can then in turn help drive sales and other types of conversions, aka selling your grills. It can also create backlinks on other sites. So keeping with that grill example, another site that's writing about how to throw the best July 4th barbecue might come across your content or your video about how to fire up the perfect steaks and link to it on their site, which then creates what we call a backlink back to your site, which again brings more eyeballs in and hopefully drives conversions to selling those grills. And as an extra bonus, the right editorial content, whether it's written or video or infographics, can also help feed other marketing efforts. So when your content marketing team is looking to fill social media content calendars or what to put out in the next newsletter from your brand, having this editorial content in your back pocket can help feed that need. All of these benefits that a brand can get from editorial content are why editorial teams spend lots of time and resources. Yes, it takes a lot of effort to get your content to rank, but the value in having really strong content is what makes top brands spend lots of time, resources, planning, creating, optimizing, and analyzing the content. As Emily was sharing earlier, if you're doing nothing and you've just put content out there and kind of set it and forget it, there's a good chance that someone else is going to outrank you that day, the next month, whenever it may be, even possibly the next hour. So it's something you have to constantly stay on top of. And unlike other types of marketing programs, such as a seasonal campaign, or let's say the Super Bowl, we've got commercials coming up for that this coming weekend, editorial content isn't an open and shut case. It's ongoing and it runs on a continuous cycle. So what does this cycle look like? We've got three main pieces that most successful editorial programs are incorporating into their planning. And this can be on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, or in some cases, it might even be more happening more often, such as if you are like a news media website where you're pushing out content on the daily. And the three big pieces that go into the editorial program lifecycle are your strategic planning, which can be anything from looking at the SERPs, understanding what keywords you want to hit and need to hit, the intent of the search, what are your customers looking for, what do you do with existing content that's already on the page that needs to be optimized, and of course, keeping tabs on your competitors. From an implementation standpoint, this can be anything from the brief development to meet those keywords and create outlines for articles to the actual article writing, assigning them out to writers, whether in-house or freelancers, editing those articles, creating images, and then publishing them within your CMS. And compliance, while not every brand or company may have to deal with this, in our experience, we've seen a majority of companies that have to run these articles through some kind of check before they get published, whether that's legal review or checking against editorial guidelines and standards, making sure all the sourcing is there, all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, all the way to potentially having to run an article through a partner or some kind of third party who you may be mentioning that you also need their legal to sign off before something gets published. And compliance can also include maintenance, which in the editorial world can mean anything from updating interest rates if you have an article that's covering the latest loan rates for personal loans or student loans or something like that, or it can be updating the structure of an article to keep tabs with the latest Google algorithm updates, adding in people also ask questions, FAQs, a video, that kind of maintenance. So with that being said, editorial can bring a lot of challenges. There's a lot to do, and it can take a village to keep an editorial team chugging along. We've been doing this for a while, and we've seen a lot of challenges that can face teams that are trying to create a successful program. Keeping up with Google is one of the biggest challenges that we see. As Emily explained, Google is a living, breathing environment. It's its own entity. They make up their own rules and they change. A couple years ago, there was a big algorithm update that caused issues with a lot of content that was ranking well and no longer ranking. We're seeing some things sneak in with SGE. I'm sure some of that has been buzzing in some people's ears that are on this webinar today. So Google, and keeping up with all of the things in Google land, is a really big challenge that we see. But some of the other challenges that we find editorial programs are facing are competition. Other brands who may have a stronger strategy in place or more resources, bigger budgets, whatever it may be. And then competition not only from competitors within your industry, but also from authoritative sites or news sites. So if you're a finance brand, for example, irs.gov might be a competitor for a topic that you're writing about, or CNET or Forbes. So competition doesn't just have to be within your industry directly. There are bigger players out there that Google weights heavier sometimes. From a strategic side, this can be a challenge for some brands, because if you don't have the right strategy in place, whether that's an SEO keyword strategy or even something as simple as a content calendar, if you don't have a plan for what types of content you want to roll out and have that tied hand in hand to your SEO strategy along with your business goals, that can bring challenges to your editorial program. Compliance, as I nodded to on the last slide, legal can be a headache, whether that's internal legal, partner legal, and for those your money, your life, YMYL categories, industry regulations can also play a role. There are certain industries, as Emily pointed out, that are regulated, where you can and cannot say certain things. And if you do say these things, you can face potentially pretty hefty fines if you violated something. Compliance may also include making sure something's on brand as far as your brand voice. You want your editorial content to match the voice of your marketing materials, for example. So there's lots of checks and balances that can go into creating a compliant editorial program. And last but certainly not least, one of the other challenges we tend to see is resourcing. This can be anything from the number of hands you have to get the job done, to your budget, to timelines, other priorities. And if your editorial program is working and you want to scale, that can also present a challenge if you can't grow as quickly as you want to. So now that I've gone through some of the common challenges that we've seen with our clients and just being in this industry for some time, we would love to know which of the ones on this list, and you can select more than one, that your editorial program might be facing. So we'll leave this up just for a minute or two. I muted myself, sorry. I think as we're waiting for the results to come in, I'll just, talk quickly that whether you're experiencing challenges with Google or coming up with a strong strategy or finding the right legal support, what we've seen sort of across the board from a client perspective and working in-house for some some big editorial programs. A lot of challenges can be softened or even solved many times with the right resourcing and with additional support to the team that can help you keep up with Google or produce stronger, more competitive content. Let's see. So the results are up. It looks like, yes. So keeping up with Google, about 70% on the webinar. Half of you are struggling with outpacing the competition. Planning is right up there with Google at 67%. Compliance, 17%. And finding the resources, about half of the attendees on the call. Yeah, so this is really in line with what we're seeing out there as well. So what's the solution? We know that editorial works. We know that having the right content can help you rank on Google, help your customers find you, meet you in the moment. But how can you do this? How can you keep up with Google, outpace your competition, have the right strategy, keep legal happy? And that is what we're here to tell you today. So I am going to hand it back over to Melissa, who's going to walk us through the best way that we've seen to rev up your brand's editorial program.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So my son is obsessed with F1, so we're going to have a little F1 theme throughout the rest of this presentation, but we like to think that ranking on Google is a lot like F1 racing. And for those that don't know F1, that's Formula One, big car racing. So in order to be a great F1 driver, you need an elite team, and that team needs to have precision, knowledge, endurance, and amazing coordination in order to win races. And more importantly, that right mix of people is what is going to really make the difference. And so with that, we want to introduce you to the Editorial Content Engine. This is a high-performance, finely tuned power source that is really going to take your editorial program to the next level. And this engine can either be a hybrid of internal and external support, or you can have it can be a mix of whatever you want. But the engine is made up of really important components. So let's take a closer look. So the first component is that strategic planning. And this is where you're going to have people like your SEO strategists and your content strategists and marketers looking out and seeing what that keyword strategy should be, what your editorial strategy should be, developing those keywords, building the briefs, and really setting that foundational work for producing the great content. The next component are your content creators. So these are your writers and your editors and your copy editors, subject matter experts, data visualization. This could also be designers and video production. But these are the people that take all that strategic work and then bring it to life. As we all know, an engine has to have more components, and that is our favorite of compliance and maintenance. And this is where, legal comes in and is really making sure that from a compliance standpoint, you are meeting not only your brand compliance, but as mentioned earlier, especially when you're in the YMYL area, that you're also hitting industry compliance. And while it may not be our favorite part of the engine, it is an extremely important part for making the engine run smoothly. And then the last piece of this engine is logistics. Personally, I feel this is the most important one, but this is the one where you're doing things like making sure your editorial guidelines are up to date and shared with everyone, that you have sourcing standards that are communicated to all editors and writers, that templates are created, resource management, and that can be everything from ensuring that your writing team is resourced correctly to the right articles and no one is overloaded, to recruiting new writers, to managing payroll. The same thing with vendor management. This is sort of the people that make the engine hum. They may not have the writing glory, but they definitely are the ones that are pushing everything out there. So a really great content engine has a lot of benefits. These are the top 5 that we've seen. So the first is speed. A humming engine is going to increase your production ability. Ease. Having a great engine is going to help you get your content produced with as little compliance risk as possible, because you've got all these people working together as a team. Quality. So Google rewards quality. So a solid engine that ensures quality content is going to help your Google ranking. Consistency. So a consistent team allows your writers and editors to know your brand, know your writing style, know your writing guidelines, and they're going to know it inside and out. And so all the articles that are produced through this engine are going to meet that consistency you're looking for, which of course feeds into efficiency. If you've got people that already know everything that you're doing, then it's going to maximize your resources and reduce that burden on your in-house team. So again, this is a solid engine. This is a great engine. And the key to helping you hit all the benefits that we just walked through is to have all of the parts working in order. We have one more poll for you guys. I'm going to launch that one now. And this is just to get a sense of how you are doing your editorial content. Obviously, if this doesn't apply to you, don't worry about it. But we're really curious of how you're running your program. Are you doing this all in-house? Are you doing this all outsourced? Are you working with a hybrid model? And leave that up just for another minute so we can keep going through. Give people just another second because we don't want to spend too much time lingering here. So we want to get to the next bits. Okay, I'm going to end it and just, it's an interesting result because it's everyone's doing a little bit of everything. So now that you've learned what a content engine is and sort of the benefits of it, how do you get started? So the first thing you really need to do is audit what you have. Let's see where your challenges are. What opportunities do you currently see in your editorial program? Once you do that, you can kind of get a sense of what are your needs? What out there, where are your growth opportunities? What are you going to need to really make this engine hum? And then let's assess it from a resource standpoint. Can you handle this in-house, or do you need to look for additional support to your team? Once you know all of the steps above, then build that content engine. And as we all know, the most important part of any engine is you're going to have to use it and you're going to have to maintain it. So as we talked about earlier, content that is out there, it is a constant cycle. You've got to maintain what you have. And so with a solid engine, using it and maintaining it is going to keep your content fresh and what content is out there up to date. So that's sort of the meat of things. And before I go into our Q&A, just wanted to take you through a couple of examples of how we at Pinwheel have built content engines and have had them running to show you this system actually really does work and can help you get results in a pretty quick manner. So first one up is Experian. We have been working with Experian since 2017. We are producing up to 100 SEO articles a month for this team. And we have seen that these articles are driving 50% of organic traffic to Experian's site. This partnership has been extremely powerful and successful for Experian and has lifted a large burden on their internal team. Lending Club. So with Lending Club, we built the program from scratch. They had no program, and we came in and they outsourced everything. And we are doing everything from their SEO research. We're creating the briefs and we're managing a team of freelancers for them. And since we started partnering with them, they've seen a 13% increase in site traffic to their resource center. Lastly is Checkr. So with Checkr, again, this is a hybrid program where some is done in-house and some external, but what we've really partnered closely with the team at Checkr on is editorial guidelines. We've helped them set their guidelines, communicated it, and working with the writers to ensure that those guidelines are followed. And again, they've seen a 70% year-over-year increase in organic traffic. So as you can see, these engines really do help power content. So the last little piece is before we go into some of the Q&A is just to remind you that this is the first webinar in a series of 3. Our next one, which will be in April, is on maximizing SEO planning and performance. You're going to get a lot of information in this one on things like EAT and AI and all sorts of SEO deep dives. And then our last one, which will be sometime in June, is on setting up your editorial program for success. I am going to hand it over to Sarah to answer our first QA question so I can get some water. Sarah, you got to unmute.
Thank you. So yes, so we had some questions come in the chat, which I'll just summarize quickly for those who haven't had a chance to read them. Catherine, thank you so much for your great questions. Catherine asked, for high SERP ranking, how much does volume matter? How do you suggest balancing volume with quality? And Emily, our SEO expert, and Todd both dove in and answered this, and I agree with both of their answers, but the general stance on that is quality over quantity. But depending on your brand and what the competition is doing and the industry you are in, it's definitely worth researching from an SEO strategy and an editorial strategic standpoint, how often your competitors are posting, looking at the types of content they're posting. And there are lots of tools that can help you get that information aside from just Googling on your own. And as Todd chimed in, quality absolutely wins. Google loves human first content, and they even have dedicated content reviewers that are real human beings that are going through your content and taking a look to see how your content is ranking against their EAT qualifications, which is EEAT, and that stands for experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And when you create content that demonstrates these principles, Google lets it be seen more favorably, which can in turn help boost rank. We will be covering this in great detail in our next webinar, but we do have a Thinkery piece, which is our Pinwheel blog, that we just put together, Emily and I, on this topic. So I am going to pop that in the chat. Another question that came in to the chat was about how long content should be. This is, again, something we'll be covering in our next webinar, and also the third one where we talk about how to create a successful program. But the length of your posts really can vary based, again, off your industry and what the needs are. But you might see an 800 to 1,000 word article, for example, for a standard blog article. And then you might see more long form content that could come in the form of a guide, for example, which might be 2,500 words or something along those lines. Again, it goes back to checking out what the competition is doing and understanding the intent of what your audience or customers in some cases are searching for. So if your audience is looking for how to grill a steak, that might be a really short piece of content. But if you are in a YMYL category, such as healthcare, and you have like a diabetes medication or something like that, and your audience is searching for really in-depth information, you might do a mix of quick hitting content as well as like a complete guide to how to tackle diabetes, which may include lots more information. Another question that came in was, thank you, Bob, was how to overcome YMYL difficulties. And I think what we're seeing out there, particularly in the YMYL categories like finance and healthcare, is a lot of brands are really focused, including Pinwheel for our clients, on this human first content creation approach, which means it's real people, real writers, real experts in the industry that are bylined and write for many, many different outlets within their niche industry creating this content. AI is, for the most part, not being used. Pinwheel doesn't use it. Our clients don't use it. We're even seeing in the YMYL space a lot of the bigger brands that live almost permanently on page one because they have the resources and the talent to do so, are putting out statements on their editorial pages specifically saying that this content was created by real people and not AI. So from a YMYL perspective, that human first approach is definitely where it's at. Emily, do you have anything to add to that as far as thinking about YMYL and AI?
Yeah, so I think AI, specifically Google search generative experience search results page, I think generative AI is going to have less of an impact on the your money, your life content industry. And that is largely because of the standard that that type of content is held to. Google isn't going to want to form their own AI answer and return that to users because one, it's not written by a real person. Google itself doesn't have any expertise in the your money, your life categories. So I do think as far as that goes, we'll see more of the traditional SERPs continue for your money, your life keywords.
Thank you for that. Another question that's come in is about, how many articles is best to publish a month? So I think I sort of answered that earlier, but when planning your content, it's really important to consider your resources. You can only do so much with the money, the team, the time that you have. So if you're a really small brand and you're trying to compete against like a Nike or something, they're going to put out a lot more content in a lot of different formats than, maybe a local brand may be able to do. But if you're somewhere in between, whether you're a YMYL or just a brand that wants to really start ranking, this is where the strategy piece comes in. It's possible to do a lot with a little when you have the right research and strategy and production process in place. More is not always more, but that magic number, is it 4 articles a month? Is it 100 articles a month? That number, there is no magic number that can be applied across the board. It's something that really needs to come as part of a strategy, and that's something that working with SEO experts and editorial experts can really help pinpoint what that sort of baseline minimum number is that would work for your company. Another question that came in through the other part, the Q&A chat, which not everybody can see, only the panelists can, but was how much does a content engine cost? That was a really great question. Melissa, do you want to field that one?
Yeah, and I'm going to give the answer everybody loves to hear, which is it depends. So, content engines have a lot of different pieces, and depending on how much you want to outsource into a content engine is really going to depend on the price. So, if you're really interested and want to find out some pricing, we'd be happy to chat with you. You can send an email to hello@pinwheelagency.com, and we'll put that email address into the chat, and we'd be happy to chat with you about that. I think what we're going to do is thank everyone for their time and attention. Really appreciate folks joining us. Again, for those that registered for the webinar, we will send out at the end of this a video link so you can rewatch it if you enjoyed it that much, as well as a link to download the deck that we presented. And again, please keep your eye out for invites to session 2 and 3, as both of them are going to be very deep, informative, and interesting. So again, thank you everybody for your time, and go out and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Appreciate it.